It's official. After years of waiting, Carlo Ancelotti will take over Brazil and lead them in the 2026 World Cup. For the first time ever, Brazil will actually have a foreign coach in charge of the national team in a World Cup. Desperate times, desperate measures. Brazil has a tremendous coaching crisis, and it seems like this was the only solution. But how will the Brazilian national team, the Seleção Brasileira, look under Carlo Ancelotti? Hello. If you're new here, I'm Filippo, and welcome to Chapéu Football, where we offer the best coverage in English of Brazilian football, or, as we call it here in America, Brazilian soccer. Oh no, I said the S word. People hate the S word. Today I want to try to predict how Brazil will play under Carlo Ancelotti. I won't talk about the multiple reasons of why he is a very good hire for Brazil. We did an entire video on that called Brazil Signs Ancelotti to Save Their 2026 World Cup. So go check out that video after this one. First, we're going to go through how he set up his clubs. Then, with the use of that information, we're going to try to set up the Brazilian national team. Now, keep in mind, he is the second coach in history to coach Real Madrid and the Seleção Brasileira. The first one being the legendary Vanderlei Luxemburgo, also known as Professor. Now, before we start, don't forget to drop a like in this video if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, and drop that very mean comment in the comment section down below, calling me an imbecile and telling me how I have zero ball knowledge. I don't care. Do as you wish. It's a free country. You can say whatever you want. But as long as you hit the like button, you can call me whatever name you want. All right? Roll the episode. Okay, so before we even think about Brazil, we must talk about how Carlo Ancelotti normally sets up his clubs, his tactics, philosophy, player selection, formation. So let's go through that, and then we can talk about Brazil. So first and foremost, Carlo Ancelotti is not a positional play coach. His teams tend to be very fluid. His teams ain't very rigid. I like to describe him as the bizarro version of Pep Guardiola. He's the complete opposite. He adapts his system to the players that he has, while Pep Guardiola wants the players to adapt to his system. Now, you can't really force a system into players in the national team. It's not like the clubs. You can't really force them to become something that they're not by simply consistently playing them in that system. It's just not going to work. Let me put it this way. I had this friend, a very nice friend of mine, a friend that I very much love, and he lived in a garage for 5 years, and he still didn't become a car. And Carlo Ancelotti also has more of a reactive approach and not a proactive approach, if that makes any sense. And I want to say one thing. The idea that he has no tactics just because his teams are very fluid and he doesn't utilize positional play is completely nonsense. The idea that just because he doesn't try to micromanage everything like Pep Guardiola, it doesn't mean his teams have no tactics. You don't win 5 Champions Leagues with no tactics. And understand, I think Pep Guardiola and Carlo Ancelotti are among the best coaches of all time. But when it comes to a national team, I think Ancelotti is a better coach than Pep Guardiola because he adopts the philosophy called KISS, keep it simple, stupid. When you're at the national team, you don't have as much time with the players that you have at the club level. So implementing a complex system that'll take a long time for the players to understand, adapt, and adjust just won't work. With the national team, you have to keep it simple and you have to adapt to the players that you have. You can't sell all of your center backs and goalkeeper and simply sign a bunch of players for $1 billion, right? Like Pep Guardiola did with Manchester City. You can't do that. So when it comes to national team, despite me being a very big fan of Pep Guardiola, I think Carlo Ancelotti is a better coach for national teams, while Pep Guardiola is probably a better coach for clubs, at least if you want consistency, right? Because Carlo did win more Champions League than Pep, but when you want consistency, Pep Guardiola definitely provides that. Another thing that I've noticed that Carlo Ancelotti often does is when he gets a team, he looks at the best player that he has available, and he tries to maximize that specific player. Cristiano Ronaldo had his best goal contribution per 90 when Carlo Ancelotti was in charge of Real Madrid. Kaká won his Ballon d'Or when Ancelotti was in charge of Milan. Benzema, like a couple years ago, right? He had his best season of his career. He won the Ballon d'Or with Carlo Ancelotti in charge of Real Madrid. Vinicius also, he really broke through with Real Madrid when Ancelotti was in charge. Now, who will be that player for Brazil? Right now, I don't know. It could be Vinicius, because Carlo actually knows him very well. Maybe Rafinha, perhaps. Neymar, if he's healthy once again. We'll see. I don't trust Neymar too much these days, but in terms of talent, Neymar is the most talented player Brazil currently has. Now, listen, the formations that we often see under Carlo Ancelotti, it's a 4-3-3 or a 4-4-2. Very often a 4-4-2 diamond, but we have seen flat 4-4-2s as well. It can vary in different phases of play, but those are the standard formations. And his teams are usually rock solid defensively. And sure, Real Madrid wasn't great this season, and as good as Ancelotti is, it's tough to make a functional team with Kylian Mbappe there, where you have to literally adapt everything in the team to him. So I'm just going to say it, in regards to Brazil, I expect Brazil to have a very strong and solid defense, just like they had under Tite. And I know what I just did is a very oversimplified, general, and superficial way of looking towards how Carlo Ancelotti sets up his teams, but that's what we're going to do in this video. So now we can try to figure out a starting 11 for Brazil and how he'll set up this team and how Brazil might play when he is in charge. And keep in mind, when I make this starting 11, I'm assuming most players are healthy, that they're not injured, like for example Neymar. And the second thing I want to say is don't look into the June games too much, because this call-up that you're about to see, that Carlo Ancelotti is about to make his very first, a lot will change. In September, we're going to see more of his version of Brazil. For June, it's not really going to be entirely his version. He'll need more than one camp to really implement his ideas. On top of that, I don't think the call-up was all made by him. I think CBF, the federation, right, had a lot of influence on the players that are in this list. Essentially, what I'm trying to say is do what no soccer fans in the world do. Don't overreact to the first two games that he is in charge, for the better or for the worse, whether he wins both or loses both. Don't overreact, don't panic, stay calm. We're totally gonna freak out and overreact, aren't we? Alright, now it's time to talk about how he might actually set up Brazil, the Seleção Brasileira. So hear me out. For Brazil specifically, I want to highlight the 2023-2024 Real Madrid season when Carlo Ancelotti won the Champions League for the last time. The reason for that is that that team was very successful, and he had just lost Benzema, and he had no true center forward or no world-class center forward to work with, or a 9. And Brazil currently has that issue. So for multiple reasons, I think there are a lot of similarities of the weaknesses and strengths of the 2023-2024 Real Madrid and Brazil. The only part that I see that Brazil is much weaker is the midfield. And sure, Endrick, Pedro, João Pedro are all good players that can play as a center forward, they can play as a 9, but none of them are at the level that you would want to start for Brazil as the center forward, or at least not right now. Endrick can still develop. You can serve or create wonderful chances, but those players won't bag the goals you need. It's like serving a nice steak or a picanha to a vegan. They simply won't eat it. And it's the same with these players. You can create goal-scoring opportunities, and they still won't score as much as you need. And it seems like that's been the issue with Brazil for quite some time, or one of the many issues with Brazil for quite some time. And no coach has ever addressed it, but I think Carlo Ancelotti will. So for that season, he set up Real Madrid in a 4-4-2 diamond, like in the Champions League final versus Dortmund. Let's go through the starting 11, where he had Courtois on goal, Carvajal as the right back, and Mendy as the left back, Fernandes and Rudiger as the two center backs, and then the diamond midfield had Camavinga as the central defensive midfielder, which we also saw Tchouaméni play there throughout the season. Toni Kroos and Valverde would be the two 8s, with Bellingham playing as the 10. Up top, he would have Vinicius Jr. and Rodrigo, so no true center forward. With that said, let me tell you how I think he's going to put the Brazilian starting 11, if he has all of these players healthy, okay? So let's start with Alisson on goal, a world-class goalkeeper just like Courtois. The back line will likely have Marquinhos and Gabriel Magalhães as the center backs at first. This can change, and players like Beraldo, Militão, that has played with Carlo Ancelotti, Bremer, Alexandro from Lille, all of these players can probably make the roster at some point. And Flamengo fans, no, Leo Ortiz should probably not be there. He's a very good center back. I actually like him quite a bit. I would love if Palmeiras had Leo Ortiz, but to me, he's not at the level that I would want for the Brazilian national team. Maybe as a backup. Now, the right back position is a tricky one for Brazil, and the options ain't great. So I think for now, it's going to have to be Wanderson from Monaco. But Militão, when he's fully healthy, he could also play as a defensive right back. We have seen that with Real Madrid. Now, the left back under Ancelotti will likely be Carlos Augusto for Inter Milan. He's great defending, great going forward, good cardio, can run back and forth a lot. He is probably the left back that he's going to choose, with Caio Henrique from Monaco being the backup option most likely. In the midfield, get ready for the return of Casemiro at the defensive midfielder role. And this is crucial. One of the reasons why Brazil was so strong defensively when they had Chichi in charge was because of Casemiro. Ever since he's left, the backline is no longer protected. It's been terrible, and Brazil hasn't found a central defensive midfielder that can do what Casemiro used to do. Now, the two central defensive midfielders will likely be Bruno Guimarães, and I know some people hate on him, and it's fair. He has been crap for the Brazilian national team, but Bruno Guimarães is a fantastic player, and I think he will flourish by playing next to Casemiro. The other one will likely be Gerson for now, but I could see André Santos, that has been fantastic in France this season, becoming the starter over Gerson and eventually being Casemiro, Bruno Guimarães, and André Santos. But for now, I would probably keep Gerson from Flamengo. Now, if healthy, Neymar will be the number 10. He will be the attacking midfielder for Brazil with a lot of freedom to roam. And then you would have Rafinha and Vinicius Jr. up top as the two strikers. Now, if Neymar is not back to his old self and he's continuously injured, then I can see Rodrigo replacing him, or maybe Rafinha becomes the attacking midfielder and Rodrigo and Vinicius can play up top. Even though I'm not going to be opposed to starting Estevão at the attacking midfielder role at some point if Neymar's not back, but I doubt that Estevão will start with Carlo Ancelotti in charge. I don't think the young players will get as many opportunities as they would with a different coach. I also think that Brazil will be dominant against lesser opponents, but when they play in Argentina or Spain, Carlo Ancelotti will have no issue sitting back, soaking up pressure, and hitting them on the counterattack. We saw him do this with Real Madrid multiple times, including that was one of the ways that he defeated Manchester City. When they played a high line, he would play the ball over the top to Vinicius or to Rodrigo. It would work, and they beat Man City. He usually does take advantage when he plays Pep Guardiola. So don't be surprised if Brazil sits back, to attract the opponent and hit them on a counter when they play very tough opponents. Like I said, like Spain, Argentina. I mean, Ancelotti even said this once. He mentioned that having a player with Vinicius Jr. and his pace, he would be an idiot to not focus on counterattacks. Now imagine if you have Vinicius and Rafinha. You would be an idiot not to focus on counterattacks. Okay, so that's the standard formation. Now I want to change the style of this video and show you how I think this team will be set up in a different phase of play, which will be in possession. How will Brazil look in possession? Because it is a 4-4-2 diamond, but when Brazil has the ball, a lot changes. And sure, once again, it's very fluid with Carlo Ancelotti, but the players still have positions, they still have roles, and they still have places they have to be in different phases of play. So let's dive in. Okay, so what I want to do here is kind of show you how we will set up in possession if we have these players and explain to you why. So when Brazil is in possession, very likely who's going to provide the width will be the fullback. So they'll push high up the field, Carlos Augusto and Wanderson. This is when we have the ball. Now, the 2-8s, Bruno Guimarães and Gerson, they're much better on the ball than Casemiro. So we saw this with Real Madrid a few years ago when Ancelotti had Casemiro, where he would push Casemiro high up the field and not let him be in the build-out. So Gerson and Bruno Guimarães, they drop to help us build out of the back. Now, I put them out wide here because they sometimes would fill in for the fullbacks to build out of the back. But Gerson could tuck inside. He can stay wide. That's just to progress the ball forward, right? And then Neymar would be able to drop here and help play make, or he just stays high up the field and he can approximate Vinicius or Rafinha, which Vinicius and Rafinha will have a lot of freedom to roam either way. So when we are in possession, even though Carlo Ancelotti is very fluid and it's not really positional play, don't be surprised if we look like a 4-4-2 with the fullbacks providing the width, pushing high up the field, Neymar with a lot of freedom to create for the national team, and Casemiro almost operating as a target man. Like Casemiro will push high up the field. That allows Vinicius and Rafinha even to open wide. And you'll see Neymar drifting one way, drifting another, dropping. Neymar will probably occupy whatever space he wants. and Casemiro will crash the box. And you got to remember one thing. I don't know if y'all remember Casemiro. He's very goal dangerous. He scored goals for the Seleção, scored goals for Real Madrid, and usually Ancelotti would use him like that, with Toni Kroos and Modric being the ones helping on the build-out and pushing Casemiro high up the field. Now, again, the standard formation is with Casemiro at the 6 when we're defending, with Gerson, Bruno Guimarães. The fullbacks obviously drop, right? And then Neymar will be here. And probably when we defend, Vinicius or Rafinha will probably have to track back out wide at times, most likely Rafinha. And Neymar will have less defensive responsibilities. And remember, Carlo Ancelotti loves to get the best out of his best player. So if Neymar is healthy, if Neymar is fit, I could see him focusing on getting the best out of Neymar and all other players trying to help out. Unfortunately, we don't have the best version of Neymar right now, but we don't know till 2026. All right, everyone. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to drop a like before you go, and let me know in the comment section down below, how do you think Ancelotti will set up Brazil? I'm looking very much forward to continue to cover the Brazilian national team all the way through the 2026 World Cup, especially under this world-class coach that we now have with very talented players. I firmly believe that Brazil is a candidate to win the 2026 World Cup. I will die on this hill until they lose it or they win it. I want to thank you all very much for watching. Don't forget to drop a like before you go and subscribe. Do that as well. And why don't you have a great day?